Hello and welcome to the basic character setup tutorial for Bloody Mess Positional Data and Dismemberment. In this tutorial we're going to take this toon character by AT Republic and set it up to be used by the Bloody Mess system. You can download this character for free from the asset store, or you can use your own character as you follow along. Alright, the first thing we need to do is we need to set up a ragdoll for this guy. So what I'm going to do is go up to Game Object, 3D Object, Ragdoll. This pops up, move him over here, and then we're going to expand out our hierarchy here to kind of get all the bones we need. Okay, so first thing we need is the pelvis, so we drag the pelvis over. Then we need the left hips, which is the left thigh on this model, the left knee, which is a calf on this model, and the left foot. Do the same thing for the right side. Then we do the arms. The left upper arm is the left arm. The left forearm is the left elbow. Right upper arm, right forearm. And then we need to do the middle spine. So that this character has a couple spines. 1, 2. Let's go with this spine right here. This, actually, let's use spine 1, this spine right here. And then the head. Give it a total mass of something around 50. And hit create. Alright, now we can go to the top of our hierarchy. And we can see that we have a nice looking Michelin man here. Looks pretty good. Let's make a couple of changes. Let's go ahead and work from the feet up here. Grab our calves. And let's bring the radius in just a little bit. Maybe 0.4. There we go. Now do the same thing for the thighs. Maybe 0.5 for them. Okay, and now let's go to the the pelvis, which is a box collider. As you can see, it's not really. It looks like it's okay. Let's go to the spine. Spine looks good. Now we need to go to the head. The head is obviously too small, so let's go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. Take the radius, expand it out, and maybe even move it up some. That's a little bit better. Okay, now we're going to go with the left upper arm and the right upper arm. Do the same thing. Let's get their radius down just a tad. Maybe 0.03, 0.04. Let's go with 0.04. And for the forearms, we'll go to 0.04 as well. 0.04, 0.03, 0.03 for them. Okay, so our ragdoll character is looking a little bit better now. But we can't just use this for our main character. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this name to something like character ragdoll. And we're just going to hide it for now. Oh, actually first we have to duplicate it. So we'll duplicate it, not the button. Duplicate the character. Move this one over here. Go ahead and hide that ragdoll. We're going to name this one character. Alright, so now we're going to actually set up directly for Bloody Mess. And what we need to do is go in to everything we've just done. Just opening up the hierarchy here. Opening it all the way up to hand because we're going to add some stuff too. Go into everything we've just done, and we need to remove any rigid body or character joint. And when there's a character joint and a rigid body, you have to remove the character joint first. You can also, it's a good idea to turn on trigger. Well, you have to turn on trigger, but this saves you from going back and doing it later. Just do it at this point. So we'll make sure that everything we modify is set to trigger. So I'm just going to go through and modify all these. Set them to trigger. Okay, that should have everything the way we want it. So we can begin. We are going to start at the feet. And what we need to do is we need to add some more colliders so that our character has more precise damage. So we're going to start with the feet, and we're going to add a box collider. Set it to trigger, and then scale it to roughly the right size. I'm going to do this kind of quickly, so it's not going to be perfect. But you should probably take the time to make your colliders match the geometry as closely as we can. And the reason why we're using squares here is, well, I simply like them better. You could use capsules if you really wanted to, if you felt like that matched your geometry better. Because this is what's going to decide whether we've been hit or not. When a raycast is raycasted out, it's going to hit one of these limbs, and that will tell Bloody Mess what's been hit and what damage to do. So let's see, that looks pretty good. For these, for feet, I like to have them go down a little bit, mostly because if you want to use landmines, you don't want to be checking the main character collider. You want to be checking these feet, because that's much more accurate than like if the character will eventually have a capsule collider for just collision detection, like running into things. And so you don't want to use this for any of your hit detection, because oftentimes, even when it's more appropriately scaled, it's still going to not be 100% accurate. So like, your character's feet are right here, but it could also trigger out here. It's probably better just to use these right here for your feet. So I'm going to hide that so we can actually see what we're doing here. Alright, so we got the feet done. Got our legs. We need to adjust them a little bit. Go to our calves. See how it's okay for things to overlap here in this area, because they're all technically going to be the leg when it comes to damage. But I do want to raise it a bit. Just a bit. Right there. Just so that this section is covered nicely. Go to the thighs. Now the thighs we're going to have to do a little bit of work on. They do not cover quite enough. there's this one little area right here where things are being kind of missed. So let's go ahead and increase the height just a tad. There we go, that looks pretty good. Alright, next let's go to the pelvis. Now, when you create a ragdoll, the pelvis is kind of put in a weird spot. We are actually going to move this pelvis down. To be more part of the lower body. I'm also going to scale it down some. That's probably pretty good. Like, let's say we want to cut the body right here for dismemberment later. You want the pelvis to be part of that lower position as much as possible. Alright, let's scale it out so it matches the... Oops. It's a little much. Might need to move this over to 0. No. 0.5. 2. I'm just trying to get it centered, because apparently this character's bone structure is kind of weird. Alright, so that looks pretty good. And as you can see, there's this area right here where if you were shooting or swinging, you'd still hit. Now, if you want to use capsule colliders for this portion of the body, you can. It'll make it more accurate. I just prefer using squares for the torso and lower body portions right here. But feel free to use capsule colliders. Or if your character is some kind of bug with segments, you can use circles. It's up to you. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust this spine 0, 1. And we need to take a look on where it needs to go. Let's go ahead and have it scale all the way up and down here. So let's increase the scale. Let's adjust where it's at. We need to make it a little bit wider. Let's make it pretty wide to start with. Let's go up with it. Scale it down. Down slightly. Alright, that looks pretty good. That's covering a good portion. Next we're going to move to the upper arms. Or the clavicles, really. I like to add the clavicles just to cover this kind of portion right here. So we'll select both clavicle. We'll add let's go ahead and add a box collider. Both of those. Let's bring those down in size. And let's take a look what we got here. We need to move them some. Let's move them along the x-axis. Your left collider, your right collider. Let's bring them scale them a little on the Z. No. Actually, that right there looks good. Stick out a little bit. There we go. Now we're talking. All right. Let's scale them a bit more on the x-axis. And then maybe move them a tad bit. There we go. Now we're covering more. 0, 3. Okay. That's just there, so a little bit more is covered. Now we'll go to the neck. We're going to add a capsule collider to the neck. Scale in its radius. Put it on the x-axis so that it's on the correct axis. Now we need to bring these back here in just a second after we do the neck. They're sticking out a little bit too far. But let's take this neck, continue the radius down. Let's go ahead and move it back a little bit. Let's put this radius at 0.3. Maybe put this at 0.2. And I think we got the net good right there. We just need to do the height a little bit more appropriate. That looks good right there. Alright, and the head is already sort of done. I actually like to use capsule colliders for head, but then since this character has sort of a circular head, we're just going to use a circular collider. We just got to position it correctly. Let's see, that looks to be pretty good, and that'll cover the head. Now we need to go from the clavicles down the arms. Let's look at our upper arms. They need to be probably 0.3, and then let's increase their height just a little bit, just so it's completely covered. That's good right there. Go to the forearms. Now the forearms, since we're going to actually put hands, we're going to make the forearms a little bit smaller. And we're going to move them up the x-axis so that they're still able to cover. So if we look right here, those two still overlap each other. That's good. And when you do animations, you'll want to go back and check and make sure, like if the arm bends, that there's not some trigger sticking out the back over here too much. I mean, it's going to stick out a little bit, but it's not going to hurt anything in the long run if it's a little bit. If it's like way sticking out over here, you need to come back and adjust the size of your triggers. Alright, for the hands, we're going to add box colliders. Go ahead and set these to a lower value. And then bring the height down. Let's take a look. Alright. Now let's move down the x-axis. And that actually looks pretty good. I might make it a tad bigger. Move it a tad bit more up. How about 0.05? That's perfect. Perfect for the hands. Alright. So, the last thing we can do is, as you notice, this character has this cool little thing back here. This could be something you add as a critical spot that will do massive damage. It could have an explosion. It could do whatever you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a collider to it. And I believe this backbone is the place we need to do it. So we'll give that a shot. Now, I think we're going to use a capsule for this, even though a box would probably be better based on the fact that the capsule is going to cover more than we probably want it to. But we'll see how it goes. Well, actually, I think the capsule ended up working pretty good. You do have this little area right here that kind of hangs down. Maybe if we, no. Let's move that back one notch. Maybe if we bring it up a tad. Just like that. That's a little bit better. But we're just going to leave it like that. That'll be fine. Alright, the next thing we have to do is we need to go through and set our actual tags for all of our different things. Now, I have all these tags already in here. If you do not have these tags, which you can find in the documentation, add them. You'll need head, left hand, right hand, right upper, left upper, right forearm, left forearm, right leg, left leg, upper body, lower body. You'll also need extra 1, extra 2, extra 3, extra 4, and critical. So let's go through our things. The pelvis is going to be a lower body. The next is the thigh, calf, and the foot. Now these objects are, you could make the thigh part of the lower body if you want, or you can make it part of the leg. I tend to like making it part of the leg. So this is going to be the left leg. And then we do the right thigh, right calf, and right foot. This is going to be the right leg. And then we go to spine 1. This is going to be the first one as upper body. Spine 2, left upper arm, or left clavicle, right clavicle are going to be spine 2. Are going to be upper body as well. For this particular model, I'm going to make upper arm and forearm just upper arm, because I'm not going to use forearm dismemberment when I get to the dismemberment with this character. So we're going to go with the right upper arm. And I guess my explanation of that is you have a choice at this point, and it's based on how you cut up your character. If you do a cut here and a cut here, then you would have an arm object and a hand object. Thus, you don't need 2 different triggers to damage the one arm object, if that makes sense. But if you were to cut here, here, and here, if you do 3 cuts, then you would have an upper arm, a forearm, and a hand. But since with this character, since it's kind of simplistic, I would cut probably here and here and just do 2 cuts and have it just be upper arms. And for simplicity's sake, I just use right upper, which technically stands for right upper arm, but it can stand for anything you want. You can make the head right upper if you wanted to. It doesn't matter. It just tells the system what's been hit, and then you can do whatever you want with that. So we're going to go to the left upper and left forearm. We're going to tag that as the left upper. And then we're going to go to the left hand, and we're going to tag that as the left hand. Right hand, we're going to tag that as the right hand. Where is it? There it is right there. So let's go ahead and make sure everything is a trigger. All those new ones we've added need to be triggers. That needs to be a trigger. Like this clavicle, it needs to be a trigger. This needs to be a trigger. Neck needs to be a trigger. Spine 2. Spine, back spine. This needs to be a trigger. We forgot to add the thing to this. This right here. Now, if you're using dismemberment, I would recommend making this one of the extras, because the extras actually dismember things. If you're not using dismemberment, if like this character in this tutorial, we're not going to dismember it. It's just this tutorial is just on positional data. I would just make the critical spot. The critical spot's just going to boost damage. You hit this spot, it's going to do something crazy. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it the critical. And it's a trigger. I got all these as triggers. Alright. Okay. Now, the next thing we have to do is start setting it up for the system itself with the scripts it needs. Actually, I think I want to go down this pelvis. I want to move it a little bit. Maybe just the way it looked threw me off. That looks a lot better. And like I said earlier, I forgot to do this. Let's go ahead and move our clavicles back just a tad. Let's go to, I think it's Y on this. Yeah. Alright, so let's move on to the next section. Alright, let's go to each of these that we made. the ones I know we got here. And we're going to add a component, limb. Alright, now we need to set the parent as the character. And the VPAD's target, we can just set it as a character as well. Doesn't matter right now, we're not going to be using it. This is for when the VPAD system framework goes in. And this limb script, all it does is it is what receives the damage, and then it sends that damage to the character, which has the proper character setup script in it, and then it does everything it needs to do. Let's look at these spines. Let's add limb to that. The back needs one. Pelvis has got one. Let's make sure everything's got it. Alright, I think we're good there. So now we're ready to add the actual main script. So we can go to the Bloody Mess, Scripts, Bloody Mess Core, go back to our character, add character setup. Character name, we can type in whatever name we want. Bob. And then really we just need to do a couple things. One, we need to have a ragdoll. So take our ragdoll character. We go to maybe our example folder here. We're going to drag our ragdoll in here. So we have a ragdoll. One thing the ragdoll needs is a ragdoll logic script. We can just leave that how it is and then hit apply. So you can look at your character ragdoll here and you can see that it has the ragdoll logic script. We can hide this ragdoll again, or you can delete him. He's already a prefab now. And we're going to bring this ragdoll right there for the ragdoll. Now, we need to set a couple things. We need to set the renderer's parent, which is the top level in the hierarchy of all your skin mesh renderers, which in this case, since there's only one, is that one. And we need the parent of all the skeleton, which is the top level in the hierarchy of your skeleton, which is that. The reason for this is when a character dies in this system, when its health equals 0, I don't destroy it. What I do is I hide the renderers and the skeleton and disable the capsule collider. And then from that point, you can still run scripts on this character that you put down here with the event system, but a ragdoll's already been spawned, the character isn't there anymore, it's not working. After a certain amount of time in this section, right now 10 seconds for the destruction timer here, then it will be destroyed as long as you're not using pooling. I'm going to go through in detail in a video like all the different variables here and what everything does in the future, but for this video we're just trying to make this character take damage and then ragdoll. One thing I'd like to mention is that, no, actually that's not what I want to hit, that if we hit play right now, and we need to make sure our camera's on. If we hit play right now, character's going to ragdoll kind of weird. He's going to look a little possessed. That's because when you do a ragdoll, there's a lot of things you have to take into account and a lot of things you need to set up. I recommend finding some good tutorials on how to do a ragdoll or how to set up one to ragdoll naturally, and then following that to get the best possible ragdoll. This video really doesn't, the purpose of this video isn't really to teach you how to do ragdolls, but I just wanted to quickly get a ragdoll there for you. There's plenty of videos out there for ragdolls. But for now, this ragdoll, while possessed, actually does kind of work. So we're just going to do that. Bring this character over here and continue getting him ready to take damage. Alright, so I added a capsule collider earlier to the whole thing. We need to add certain layers to the character. The top layer of your character that contains this main capsule collider needs to have an layer named enemy. And only this object. Do not check this, check no, this object only. Now, the actual skeleton needs to have a layer named limb. And we could check yes, change children. So what this does is now everything down here has a layer of limb. All of our capsule colliders, everything. And this has enemy. This allows you to have a collider out here that things can collide with, but to allow your ray cast to go through it and hit these other parts of the body. Okay. Now we need to add a rigid body because this character is supposed to be able to move eventually. And we could give him a mass of 10 freezes, rotations, whatever you want to do. He isn't kinematic because he would be moving and having force applied to him. So we'll go ahead and leave that alone. Now, if you look at the script, you'll notice there's all kinds of stuff here. And like I said, I'm going to go through this more. But for right now, I'm going to use things at their default values. Except for I'm going to come in here in these multipliers, and I'm going to set them all to 1. I'm going to go to... We have our max health at 100, our head health. Set all these to 100 as well. Since we're not using dismemberment, you can set all these to 100 and it'll be fine. Alright. So technically you don't actually have to add anything else to a character that is not being dismembered. If it's just damage you want to use, whether it's a mobile game, you want to save on performance, or if you just don't want to have dismemberment in your game, you can still use positional damage in the event system to do cool things on your character based on where it's hit. And we're going to go ahead with this example. I'm going to add a script to the camera. It's called shoot. Oops. It has the damage. I'm going to set the damage to 10 and the hit mask to limb. And the weapon type, keep it at 0. You don't need, ignore these two things. They're not even used right now. We need to move our character over in front of the camera. Make this a little bit easier. I'm going to go like that. Okay, so what we're trying to do is make sure our character, when it dies, it ragdolls. Move it back a little bit, right there. And what this shoot script does is just a good way to test your character. So, let me see. Got all that done. Added all that. We've got a ragdoll on there. Alright, let's go ahead and set a couple variables here before we test this. Let's let the head multiplier be 5, critical multiplier be 10. Just keep the hand multiplier be 0.2, the arm multiplier be 0.5, and the leg multiplier be 0.7, the body multiplier 0.1. This just means that we're going to multiply the incoming damage times different values to get what we're looking for. Alright, let's try it out. We've got the character's current health right here. If we hit the head, it's doing 5 times the damage, which the damage right now is set to 10. But it does 50 damage. Hit it again, character dies. Now let's try the other body parts. The hand, it's only doing 2 damage, which is 0.2 of 10. 5 damage, which is 0.5. Let's do the leg, 0.7. Yep. Then we can rotate the character. Go ahead and kill him real fast. And I can show you that we have this critical thing on the back. We hit this critical spot, bam. It did all the damage, and he's dead. Well, that it kind of completes the initial setup process for a character in Bloody Mess. Obviously, if you want better ragdolls, you need to go in and fix a lot of the ragdoll values to make it do it more naturally. But otherwise, you've got a character that takes positional damage, can use the event system to do neat things with that information. I'll be making tutorials in the future that completely cover the event system. And the next tutorial I'm going to do is going to be a complete character setup of a dismemberable character, and it'll go from this point, and then I'll take from this point all the way to a character that can be cut up into pieces, or shot up into pieces. It'll obviously be a character that's already cut up for that. In the future, I'll be doing a tutorial on how to take a character, it'll actually be this character, how to take this character right here and split it up into meshes in a 3D modeling program, and then transfer the original weights onto that new character, and then bring it back into Unity and use it as your dismemberable character. Anyways, I hope this was a helpful tutorial. I hope I didn't ramble too much and I was clear enough for you to hear. So I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks.